on this edition of the Ultimate New Orleans Sports Show.
He definitely did things the right way, completely opposite of the last quarterback that was there.
Sometimes just having the perspective of being a new father, or just having
a lot of them
the
on the team right
paradigm
now.
of like how you're thinking.
It's good for Cam. It's good for the city of New Orleans. It's good for the New Orleans Saints. It's good for his family.
Yeah, I agree across the board.
I'm going to say it right now because we're going to have to make predictions when it gets closer. I think the Saints are a playoff team in 2026.
Nice. And welcome into another episode of the Ultimate New Orleans Sports Show, a post-mandatory minicamp edition and a mandatory viewing edition for this episode. We appreciate you very much for being here. I am Ross Jackson. This is the magnificent Doug Mouton, and we thank you very much for being here with us today.
I like the way you always go with mandatory on minicamp. It's not just minicamp to Ross, it's mandatory
It is
minicamp.
mandatory. That's what it's called.
No,
it's
it is.
mandatory There's rookie minicamp, there's voluntary OTAs, and then there's mandatory.
Mandatory. I just call it minicamp, but I like mandatory mini. Makes it sound tougher.
You're supposed to be there.
Yeah, and look, the one guy who was there, right? Cam Jordan coming back. Super cool story.
Yeah.
Gets to come back to the Saints. Gets to 16 years with one franchise in all pro sports. That's so odd. Your feelings, impressions of the Cam Jordan return?
Yeah, it's the right move for everyone involved.
Everyone.
The New Orleans Saints are better with Cam Jordan on the field. Cam Jordan is at his prime in New Orleans. And leave it to Cam Jordan to show up on the first day of
minicamp / mandatory.
mandatory minicamp and sign a contract, and then show up the second and final day of mandatory minicamp to participate.
Yes.
I mean, it is so quintessentially Cam Jordan. His son Tank took the podium before he did and said that his birthday wish was to come back to New Orleans. They were able to get that done. It's good for Cam. It's good for the city of New Orleans. It's good for the New Orleans Saints. It's good for his family.
Yeah, I agree across the board. My favorite debate with Cam Jordan is he the second best player in franchise history or the third best player? The Ricky Jackson argument comes in.
Right.
In my experience, people under 50 tend to say Cam Jordan. People over 50 tend to say Ricky Jackson. I think neither is wrong.
No. And I'll tell you this much. Teron Armstead said that it's Cam Jordan.
Because
under 50.
Yeah, he's under 50. And he played with Cam. I hope he said, if he said Ricky Jackson, that'd be a Cam Jordan insult. All right, let's show you what's on the menu for this edition of the Ultimate New Orleans Sports Show. And I say it every time. Not the food.
Not the food.
Not the food, although we often wish that it was the food. All right, our large plates, and that's the guy, Cam Jordan.
Yeah.
We've already brought that up, but yes, coming back is just all good. And look, we're also going to talk about Tyler Shuck. Tyler Shuck spoke again to the media. So many interesting things. So many players had interesting things to say about Tyler Shuck. Year 2 of Tyler Shuck. There's a lot of meat on that bone to talk about. And then your guy.
Yeah, so the small plates with some not so small topics. Kool-Aid McKinstry had a really, really strong camp. We're going to talk about a lot of the folks that stood out to us during these off-season practices. Best believe I'll be bringing up Kool-Aid. We'll also be taking a look ahead as well with Jordan Tyson, what has been, what will be with him. We'll break all of that down. And, of course, we'll also take a look at this guy here.
Yeah, that's one of your guys, too.
Oscar Delp had, he had an injury in early OTAs, came back in minicamp, did some things that are really impressive. We'll tell you all about it as we go through today.
And Oscar Delp, the tight end from Georgia, who the Saints drafted and have high hopes for. And by the way, Kool-Aid is not number 4 anymore.
Yeah.
But that's a picture from last year. I love that picture.
Numero uno.
Not sure why I like that one so much, but that's cool. He just looks so ready for action. All right, our guest tonight, a first time on, Erin Summers from the Believe in Saints podcast. Love having Erin on. She's been covering the Saints for a number of years and greatly looking forward to having her. We've been trying to get her on, or talking about getting her on now.
Done.
Yes, now she's here, so it's awesome. And the comic stylings of Ricardo LeCompte.
Yes, who will bring his usual brand of ridiculousness.
His usual brand of ridiculousness. And our last call tonight, I made the drink last week. Ross Jackson, what do you have for our drinking pleasure tonight?
All right, I'm going a little complicated here. So the drink today is going to be a rum old-fashioned. Now, bear with me. It's an old-fashioned, but it's with rum.
With rum.
That's right. Fantastic drink, one of my favorites.
So you're replacing the bourbon with rum.
Oh, no, I was going to do both.
Yeah, I knew you were going to say that. We're replacing the syrup and the bitters with rum.
Rum syrup for the bourbon old-fashioned. Yeah.
Wow. that sounds complicated. Yeah, rum old-fashioned. Greatly looking forward to that. All right, look. See the smile on, that was obviously from last year, the smile, and that was the season finale. where Chase Young was all smiles, certainly in the second half of the season. He's been all smiles, too, in minicamp, mandatory. And I do want to talk about him a little bit when we launch into it because I think he has been such a cool story. The defense has to start with Chase Young. He's the guy, right?
Yeah, he is the end-all, be-all for this New Orleans Saints defense right now. Now, don't get me wrong, they have other leaders on that team. They brought in Caden Ellis, who I think is going to do a fantastic job in his return in New Orleans. Justin Reed has been fantastic already for them. He'll continue to be. But really, this defense is going to be defined by its front. And the leader of that front is and will be throughout the season Chase Young. We spoke to Brandon Staley on each of us on separate occasions, but one of the things that you will pick up from Brandon Staley immediately are the high expectations of Chase Young going into his second year in his system.
Cam Jordan said he wants to help Chase Young get to 20 sacks.
20 sacks.
Sounds crazy.
Yeah.
You know what? If he did it, I would not be shocked.
That's the amazing thing about Chase Young is that he has that level of potential. So if he had a 20-sack season, you go, wow, that's incredible. But also, yeah, he's probably the guy that would do it.
And he's the guy who could do it, and it's well within his physical capabilities.
Yeah. Had his first double-digit sack season last year with 10. I think he can easily surpass that this year, especially if he's healthy for all 17 games. So remember, he only played 12 last year.
And to me, he is the linchpin of that entire defense because when he's healthy and on the field, not only will he get a ton of sacks, he will draw every double team. The reason Cam Jordan fits so well into this defense this year is that he will never see an inkling of a double team, nor will anyone else. Carl Granderson or Caden Ellis if he's blitzing, because whatever extra you have to devote to pass protection all goes to Chase Young. And that is maybe his biggest impact on this defense, that he can make everybody else better.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's the symbiotic relationship between rush and coverage. You get pressure, you force errors, you force the clock to be sped up for a quarterback. Quarterbacks like to get to a certain spot for certain plays so that they know their lane for a throw. If you can get them off of that spot, you can disrupt them, get the timing off, all these other things. And then beyond all of that, one of the big things that Chase goes very unheralded for is his ability as a run stopper as well.
Oh, yeah.
And to be able to contribute in that area of the game. The Saints were second in defensive EPA per rush last year. They faced a lot of rushing attempts, but got so much better against the rush by the end of the season.
Yeah, he's one of the guys that has to be really excited about this upcoming season. But for now, let's bring in the guest.
All right, everybody, continuing on with the Ultimate New Orleans Sports Show, and we've extended our panel.
Yes, our guests are here. That, of course, the comic stylings of Ricardo LeCompte. This, of course, is Erin Summers from the Believe in Saints podcast.
Welcome.
Yes,
so happy to have Erin on.
Her debut.
That's right. Okay, Erin, we're going to start with you because you were around and in the locker room and in the facility going from the Dennis Allen era into the Kellen Moore era, which, of course, is the most important transition right now, coaching-wise. How would you describe the difference in maybe, here, I'll use it for you, the vibes around where things are now?
By the way, thank you for using the word
You're welcome.
vibes.
I knew you wanted that.
Things feel very different in the locker room. And I think that from even last season with Kellen Moore entering the building, bringing in a new coaching staff, it wipes the slate clean for everybody. Regardless of what happened the year before, that coach is not here anymore. You have any opportunity ahead of you as long as you go out there and you work hard. And the guys in the locker room really rallied around each other.
Yeah.
And I think that you're seeing that going into this year. They spent a lot of time with each other off the field, doing these team bonding activities. I think it starts with your quarterback and Tyler Shuck really throwing himself into the culture of New Orleans and Mardi Gras and all the different events. I mean, he definitely did things the right way, completely opposite of the last quarterback that was there. And I think that is definitely something that is permeating the locker room and just the friendship that they have, the camaraderie. They really enjoy being around each other.
I mean, all three of us are walking around in there, and we're sort of amazed at how many people are just laughing and smiling. It is the vibe in that room is just grossly different. I'm not saying that means you're going to win a Super Bowl or it means you're not. But just everyone seems so much more relaxed and easy than at least the last couple of years. You feel that?
Absolutely. I think that the weight is off of their shoulders because the head coach prior was on the hot seat, and they knew it.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of tension between playing time and who was on the field, off the field, and positions that people were in. I mean, heck, Cam Jordan could write a novel about how upset he was with what was going on. So that is off the table now, and everybody's really enjoying what Kellen Moore is bringing. He's just so genuine. He's going to listen to you, take whatever advice you have as a player. He was a player, and work together with everybody. And I think that is something that they really like.
Yeah, I think that former player connection is really important.
And I felt like, and kind of your point, Aaron, it felt like Dennis Allen wanted to carry the same kind of success that Sean Payton in the previous administration had. So it almost felt like they were kind of running the same stuff that Sean was doing, that kind of same attitude, that kind of same, those vibes.
Yeah,
those vibes that in
that
locker room. And there's such a shift now with Kellen Moore. It's that shift of going, hey, we've got a younger guy. Like I say, it is a millennial, a guy that players can connect with. So it feels like there's a lot of closeness in that locker room where, I am actually playing for the guy next to me. Like, you could say that, but it genuinely feels like this team has that. And part of it is because I think there is that change, that culture shift of what Kellen Moore and company have brought in, because it's just something new and something that, previously when we were in that locker room, it just didn't feel that way when it was post Sean Payton and then after with Dennis Allen for those couple of years.
It's funny. One of the things that I hear, no matter which side of the football I'm talking to, and I ask questions about, how are you feeling about where things are going, the one thing that I pick up from everybody is that they're being challenged. Yeah. And sometimes that's because, Julian Blackman, for instance, talked about how, look, the system that they run over on the defensive side puts these guys in position to do what it is that they do best, but you have to be smart. You have to understand what's going on. You have to know what the guy beside you or across from you or next to you is doing. You have to have a really good understanding, and it is a challenging, complicated system. And I think there's something about that challenge. It's like being that smart kid in school, right? Of like, oh man, he's so much more behaved when he's being challenged. You know what I mean? And there is certainly something. Yep. And there's certainly something that's going on with that with both Brandon Staley and Kellen Moore.
And I think it's positive, but is the positive vibes, is that a good thing to produce winning football?
I would say that just because you have it, it doesn't mean that you will win games. But if you don't have it, you ain't winning any games.
You're not winning.
No, but if you listen to Tyler Shuck, he always says there's a sense of urgency.
Yeah.
It's not only we're out here to have fun, to take extra reps together, whether it's at Tulane or another high school field. They are spending extra time together, but it's because there's a sense of urgency to be as good as they possibly can be early than they were last year, and you look at the schedule, they're going to have to be.
Yeah, they really are. You brought up Tyler, and you said before about him staying here and doing all the right things. What do you notice different in him now than, maybe halfway through last season? Like what are you seeing in him in the last 3 months that strikes you as a little different?
When you look at Shuck and what he did in college, he was in 4 different systems, colleges, locker rooms. So he knows how to connect with the players around him. And he doesn't step in and, as the quarterback, say, I'm the leader, you have to listen to me. He leads by example. He got to know the guys in the locker room around him. He earned their respect by what he did day in and day out. He wasn't the starter day one last year. He earned it halfway through the season, and he did extremely well. And this year, he is the leader because of what he did, the example he set last season, and because of how he's showing up every day. I mean, he's been here every single day in New Orleans since the season ended. He's been in the facility. He's been training and working out despite having a little baby at home. And I think that other players are getting on that bandwagon as well. And you see him with different guys every day.
Yeah, agreed. And it's interesting, too, like Noah Fant was talking, right? Who doesn't know anything about what happened here last year. And he says, well, when you got your franchise quarterback, that's what you want out of him. Like it's become so who he is to be the leader of the team. Like he's going from here to here in a leadership role. And the guys who are just walking in the door are like, oh, yeah, that's him.
That sticks out to me, too, because you're talking about the people that are saying that are people that have worked with Jared Goff and Matthew Stafford and Josh Allen and Trevor Lawrence and Joe Burrow in Noah Fant's case. Like, these are guys that have seen the setup of, oh, that's the guy. And they're coming in and they're looking at Tyler Shuck and they're going, oh, that's him. That's the guy. He's here. It's a really cool thing because it's not just like, hopefulness coming from players that have been here. It is as if it were an established belief already for the people that are external coming in.
Yes, not just established belief, but like the given.
Yeah, right.
Like
right,
he is that
yeah.
guy.
Yeah.
That is your franchise guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's funny because it's like you want that from your franchise quarterback, obviously, but at the same time, it's like when you're seeing like David Edwards talk about how excited he is to kind of work with Tyler Shuck. It's like that's what's has drawn most of these free agents to come here. This is what's drawing most of these guys that have this optimism, like we can take that next step as a team, is because Tyler Shuck has assumed this role of being a leader and also acts like the leader and hasn't been told that he is the guy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like he has already assumed that leadership role in the locker room. And it's kind of funny when you said that, Aaron, about taking care of a baby. Sometimes just having the perspective of being a new father, or just having
There's a lot of them
the
on the team right
paradigm
now.
of like
Yeah.
how you're thinking.
Yeah.
Because remember, he was talking about when we were having in that media session when he was talking about, I made those mistakes in the past of not being that leader or whatever. Well, part of it being like a father is kind of stepping into that leadership role, whether
You have
you
no
like it or
choice.
not.
Yeah.
You
Yes.
have no choice. And part of that, just having that paradigm shift of going like, hey, I've got to take care of another person, that does kind of bleed over. Putting stuff in perspective of your job as a quarterback, that also may help him as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, big time.
Let's flip this around.
Let's
Let's get rid of the positivity.
Wait. You're killing the vibes.
Killing the vibes.
Sure.
Let's go to our boil water advisory. And in this case, we want to know what is something you didn't see at. Oh, there's the boil water advisory. We call that a stinger. That's the boil water advisory.
I ain't trying to drink that water.
All right, something that you either saw at minicamp that like raises an eyebrow that or maybe something you didn't see, or something that is a concern as we get ready for training camp. What do you think?
I'll start with the running back position because it didn't necessarily raise a concern, but seeing Alvin Kamara take second team reps was like a whoa,
Yeah, it's a
okay,
reset,
this is
yeah.
actually where we are. AK seems to be on board with that. Travis Etienne is going to be your primary back. He's going to get the majority of the reps. But then you look behind that. So AK did have injuries last year.
Oh, yeah.
He missed the last 6 games of the season. Behind him, Devin Neal already injured again. Kendry Miller, haven't seen him on the field yet. So that is going to be a very important position for this team. They've emphasized improving that run game, and already I'm just a little worried about who is on and off the field
I think
here.
that's totally legit. You
Yeah.
want to go next, or Ricardo?
No, Ricardo.
Okay.
Okay. Well, I mentioned special teams, and it's the return game and the kicking game. The other thing, and it's not really, I think Jonas Sanker at the start, I'm not saying he can't do the job, but with Alontae Taylor leaving, you still had that void. I feel like he's capable of doing it. It's just one of those things where the concern is, I haven't seen it yet. Let me see if he can perform in that position.
That's a really good one. He's a very different style of player.
Than Alontae, right?
I think that's going to be super fun to
And
watch.
so, yeah, and who knows? Maybe that makes him better suited, or maybe it's just a little bit of a learning
Right.
curve, whatever it might be. That's a great one. I think for me, not having a deal done with Chris Olave yet isn't a super, like, the Saints usually don't get their extensions done until like August or September. Like, I remember they got their DeMario Davis one done like right before the Las Vegas Raiders game, that premier game where they opened Allegiant Stadium out there. So it's not super concerning, but I do think you'd like to have that cleared and out, no distraction, all that before training camp. And what adds to that is that Olave himself has already said, I'd like for this to be done before training camp.
That's good.
And so I think the fact that that's still not done yet is something that, we're not able to observe that out on the football field, but if it gets to the point where you are able to observe that out on the football field, that something's happening because that deal's not done, I just think that is an unnecessary hurdle, to put up in front of yourself.
Yeah, that's a really good one. Mine is still at cornerback when I watch the corners, is that, look, Kool-Aid's got to take a step forward, and I know you were really big on his summer so far, and that's great. Quincy Riley was, I would say overall he was okay in his first year as a starter, which was great considering where they drafted him.
Yeah.
He overperformed his draft position, but now he is the locked-in outside corner. Those two guys, teams throw the ball so much. Those two guys have to play at a really good level for this team to be good. I have major questions about, you mentioned the depth problems at running back. I have major problems about all the depth questions behind them. Isaac Yiadom is probably the number 3 right now, but he hasn't played good, meaningful football in a couple of years, probably since the last year that he was here. I just have questions at corner, and I would love for those 2 guys to step up and be better.
Yeah.
All right, let's flip that around, though, and get back to the positivity.
Yeah.
So what's the best thing you saw at camp that maybe something you weren't expecting? Ross, you go first this time.
Yeah.
Something that was like, oh, I love this.
Yeah, I think I'll focus on the offensive side, and it's just the nature of the in and out of the offense. What I mean by that is you have Jordan, well, probably not Jordan Tyson yet, but you got Bryce Lance who'll line up at the X, then he'll move over to the Z, and then all of a sudden he's taking a snap out of the slot. You have Oscar Delp, the rookie third-round tight end that was brought in from Georgia, who'll be in line, he'll be in the slot, he'll motion out, and all these other things. He's being targeted in all 3 levels. It's just the multiple nature of this offense, I think, is something that is going to be one of those big differences from year 1 to year 2 for the Kellen Moore offense is kind of the freedom to be able to operate in such a way to where you can incorporate a lot of different usages out of all these players to keep defenses panicking a little bit.
I think they're going to be a lot more versatile offensively. I think we're going to see a lot of 12, maybe even 13 personnel, a lot of tight ends. I mean, and especially because these tight ends can be receiving at tight ends. So you're 2 big bodies over there. It's going to be really hard for the defense. I think something that I saw that I loved that wasn't on the field was in the locker room. Chris Olave and Baron Brown. The conversation that they had one day, Baron was so upset because he missed a catch. And he was like, what did I do wrong? Like, what do I got to do? And Chris is like, it's going to happen. He's like, you're mad because you should have had it. Not because it was on anybody else, it was on you. And you just jumped too early. So they were kind of talking it out, and Baron was distraught. And Cio's like, hey, it's okay. It's going to eat you alive until the next time we get out on the field and you get another opportunity. But just listening to that dynamic between them and seeing Chris Olave be that leader and talk to the rookie through what he was dealing with mentally and give him some tips is, like, I think another level that we're going to see from Olave.
Yeah, that's outstanding.
Awesome. Aaron, was he as distraught as when he had to try crawfish for the first time?
He was very distraught at the
you're
Super
talking
Bowl.
about missing a catch, but having had a crawfish. Oh boy, he was. I'm excited. Staying on the offensive side, I'm just excited about the potential that Travis Etienne can bring to this offense. He was taking all the number 1 reps, clearly the number 1 back. Just the multitude of things that he can do for this run game, for this passing game. I'm excited to see that. And getting those glimpses early in this offseason program excites me for that.
Yeah, and with no pads and no hitting, it's hard to love an offensive lineman in minicamp, comma mandatory. It's hard to love a defensive lineman or a linebacker. So what I find myself watching is this wide receiver group, and there's so much to be excited about. Jordan Tyson is jumping out of his skin, trying to run downfield. It's a jogging walkthrough, and he's going at like 80% putting moves on people, and he's running by people because nobody else cares. It's a walkthrough. But and then Bryce Lance, who, the way I kept saying it, he got a disproportionate number of balls. Like the ball just seems to find him way too often, which is a great quality if you're a wide receiver. And then Jalen Polk, who was just a pleasure to meet, and then also a little bigger than I thought in a Saints uniform. And they ran a whole bunch of bubble screen action to him. I think there's going to be a Jalen Polk package. I think the wide receiver position is going to be so much fun to watch. But you know what else is going to be so much fun?
Last call!
Best time of the show. It is time for our drink. Ross, what are you making?
I am making a rum old fashioned, which is an old fashioned with rum. No, it's very simple. No, but I love this drink. I decided that I wanted to try a drink at my favorite bar over at the New Orleans Athletic Club. Shout out to Chris the other day. And I said, Chris, 2 favorite drinks, Chris, are a daiquiri and an old fashioned. What should I do? And he went, a rum old fashioned. I was like, oh, you took the best things from the things and you made them a thing. And so here's what we're going to do. We're doing just a half an ounce of simple syrup, which I brought in my fantastic olive oil glass.
That's a nice bottle.
I love that bottle.
Awesome.
a couple dashes each of Angostura and orange bitters. This is a Florida Cagna 12 rum, so it's an aged rum. This one you want 2 ounces of. And then,
From where, by the way?
This is actually from the base of a volcano.
There you go.
Is where they get
In what
this.
country, then?
Nicaragua.
In Nicaragua.
Nicaragua, yep.
Nicaraguan rum.
And then we also have, of course, the best cherries in the game.
Yeah,
The
yeah,
Luxardos.
yeah.
And then just a little orange peel.
Yes.
There you go.
They're the best cherries in every game.
That's true, in
Yes.
every game.
Not just the game, every game.
Every game.
Okay, and our last call where Ross makes our drink is to give our final think. What do you have for us, Aaron?
Well, we started the show talking about Cam Jordan and Chase Young and the fact that Cam Jordan is back. The vibe's very high. If this is a drinking
5.
game, I think, yes, that's 5. Well, talking to them in the locker room after practice yesterday, Cam Jordan told me that 17.5 sacks is going to be the combined total from him and Chase. And I said, I think it should be higher. Because he was saying Chase was going to get 20.
Right.
So
Could
he
get
said,
20.
okay, 21. So I said, Cam, you're only going to get 1. Not going to overextend himself in year 16, okay?
The math ain't
Love
mathing.
that. Great stuff.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Ricardo, what you got?
I'd like to say congratulations to the 2 newest members of the Saints Hall of Fame, Teron Armstead and Mark Ingram. And yes, I do like Teron Armstead. I'll start with him first, who was a pleasure to grab in the locker room, was great with the media. He is currently in media right now doing the podcast. I always think if he had stayed healthy, he could have been one of the best left tackles, not only in Saints history, but in NFL history. He was so athletic, one of the fastest 40 times at the combine for an offensive lineman, for a left tackle, and was just an anchor with him and Ryan Ramczyk at the other end at right tackle. Those offensive lines were protecting Drew Brees in that second half of his year. And Mark Ingram, a running back who had the high expectations as a Heisman Trophy winner and a first-round pick, didn't live up to it initially, but then ended up becoming, when he retired, the all-time leading franchise leader in rushing yards and touchdowns before Alvin Kamara passed him. So congratulations to both players.
Congratulations.
I'm just a bit so anxious to try this drink. I'm
real
sorry.
quick-
I didn't mean if I felt like I was rushing you, I was.
He was.
I want us to do our cheers to both of those guys and Sal.
Yes.
How about and
Oh, Sal.
Sal?
Mr. Sal.
Mr. Sal.
Mr. Sal.
Mr. Sal.
My favorite. We love you and congratulations.
Consummate professional,
Yes.
and also a great, like, his smile, his joy.
Oh, my God.
Every Sunday in the press box. This is to you as well.
That's
Shout out
awful
Sal.
good.
Oh man, that is sweet.
You actually put a little bit less syrup than I do in the bourbon, but the rum brings its natural sugars to the table.
Yeah.
That's a beautiful
That is-
drink.
Thank you. I
My
love it.
goal
Very
is to
good.
one day make a menu for a bar
Yeah.
and have a whole page of old fashions.
Yeah.
Because I think there's 10 different variations that are all different and all beautiful.
Yeah.
And that's
there's-
beautiful.
This is
a great.
pristine.
Shout out to Chris.
Oh,
Shout out Chris.
Chris.
This is-
Chris,
Chris
shout
did not
out.
make me this drink.
I
Shout out
understand,
to
but
Ross
it's his
Jackson.
Yes,
recipe.
Ross.
It was Ross Jackson.
You want a drink or you want to go next? Okay, I'm going next. All right, look, mine is, after watching minicamp and the vibes are so high and things are
6.
looking so good.
6.
I'm going to say it right now because we're going to have to make predictions when it gets closer. I think the Saints are a playoff team in 2026.
Nice.
And I know it's probably borderline that a lot of people could be giving them 6 or 7 wins. I'm going to give them somewhere between 9 and 10, depending on how I feel. And I think this team can get to the playoffs. I do not think they're a Super Bowl team, but what I love about what Kellen Moore has built and Mickey Loomis, people love jumping on Mickey Loomis and they love hating on Mickey Loomis. He has done a great job the last 2 years by all objective criteria. I love the direction they're going with. I think they're a playoff team this season.
Doug, 6 wins wins you the NFC South.
That's right.
I might get a break. They could win 7 and get in, but I think they're a playoff team right now.
Right.
Not a Super Bowl team, playoff team.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. That's great. I'll attach to what Ricardo was talking about here with the Saints Hall of Fame. I think you hear a lot about how players finish their careers, but it's really tough sometimes to really hone in on where the very beginnings were. And I want to share something that Teron Armstead talked about, where I asked him, he talked a little bit about him being that kid that got into the University of Arkansas at Pine Bluff, one of the premier HBCU players to play in the NFL. And one of the things that he said was that he didn't get any offers to colleges. He didn't get scholarships and things like that. He went to his high school bathroom and made a phone call to UAPB and begged them for a scholarship. They gave him that scholarship eventually, half football, half track. Speaking of his 40-yard dash.
That's why it's there.
And so the beginnings of what became a team Hall of Fame run for Teron Armstead started effectively with a phone call begging for a scholarship.
That is awesome.
And what an incredible human and what an incredible story.
Yes.
And
Both
he
him and
always-
Mark Ingram have that kind of story.
Correct.
It's really
and he
amazing.
always like acted and played like a guy who was so appreciative of his place, and that made it different.
Yeah, I was impressed just how he even complimented the media going, you guys have such a tough
we never
job.
do that.
And I
Now
go,
he
what are you
knows.
talking about?
on
You
the
have
other
a tougher
side.
job.
Yeah.
I just wear makeup and read words off of Trump.
Yeah.
That's it. That's all I
Ladies
do.
and gentlemen, thank you for watching this edition of the Ultimate New Orleans Sports Show. Enjoy. Woo!